Behind a locked allotment shed in Yorkshire, there's a notebook that gardeners have been quietly copying out by hand for 60 years. The tricks inside are not in any modern gardening book, because half of them would earn you a stern letter from your council, and the other half were deliberately buried by the companies that sell you compost, feed, and seeds every single spring. Number 9 on this list got people fined during a hosepipe crackdown, yet it grows tomatoes faster than anything in a garden centre. And number 2? Allotment committees have tried to ban it for decades. By August, these 25 forgotten tricks can fill your kitchen with a year's worth of food. Hit subscribe, and let's count them down. Number 25. The bucket of stinking comfrey tea. Before there was a £9 bottle of tomato feed on every shelf in B&Q, your grandfather grew a clump of comfrey by the compost heap and made his own. He'd cut an armful of those broad, hairy leaves, cram them into an old bucket, weigh them down with a brick, and leave them to rot for 3 weeks. The smell was genuinely offensive, which is why the trick fell out of fashion. But what dripped out the bottom was a black, treacly liquid packed with potassium, the exact nutrient tomatoes, beans and courgettes crave to set fruit. Diluted 1 part to 10 in a watering can, it cost absolutely nothing and outperformed the branded stuff in side-by-side tests. The garden centres would much rather you forgot a single plant could feed your whole plot for free. Number 24. A spoonful of Epsom salts in the can. That tub of magnesium sulfate your nan kept for aching feet was also her secret for fat, glossy tomatoes and peppers. When the lower leaves went yellow between the veins, she knew the plant was starved of magnesium, the engine behind photosynthesis. A tablespoon dissolved in 4 litres of water, watered around the roots once a fortnight, turned sickly plants deep green within days. It cost pennies for a tub that lasted 2 summers. Modern feeds quietly add a touch of magnesium and charge you handsomely for it, never mentioning that the cheapest box on the chemist's shelf does the identical job. Greenhouse growers in the 1960s swore by it for sweeter fruit and stronger flower set. We were taught to ignore it the moment the feed industry found a way to sell magnesium back to us at a markup. Number 23. Chitting potatoes on the windowsill. Every spring, your grandmother lined seed potatoes up in old egg boxes on a cool, bright windowsill weeks before planting. She'd point the end with the most little eyes upwards and wait until each tuber sprouted short, stubby, purple-green shoots. This is chitting, and it gives the potato a fortnight's head start the moment it hits the soil. That head start can mean the difference between a crop lifted in June and one still sitting in the ground when blight arrives in a wet July. A sack of seed potatoes cost a few shillings, and a chitted row yielded heavier every time. Modern packaging tells you to plant them straight away. It's quicker for them to sell, but it robs you of the earliest, cleanest harvest of the year. Number 22. The marigold bodyguard. Your great-aunt never planted a tomato without a ring of French marigolds around it, and it wasn't for decoration. Those pungent orange flowers release a scent that confuses whitefly and masks the smell of the crop they're guarding, while their roots exude a compound that suppresses the root knot nematodes lurking in the soil. She'd tuck them between the brassicas too, sacrificing them as a magnet so the caterpillars chewed the marigolds instead of her cabbages. A packet of seed cost next to nothing and self-seeded for years after. The pesticide companies had no interest in a flower that did the work of a spray bottle for free, so companion planting was quietly written off as an old wives' tale. The Victorians knew better. They called it good husbandry. Number 21. Coffee grounds and crushed eggshells round the stems. Nothing left your nan's kitchen without a second purpose. Used coffee grounds, dried on a tray, were scattered around acid-loving plants and dug into the soil where they slowly released nitrogen and deterred slugs, who hate dragging their soft bodies across the gritty texture. Eggshells, baked hard and crushed to a coarse powder, ringed the base of hostas and lettuces like a tiny wall of broken glass. Together they fed the soil and guarded the crop without a single chemical. A jar of slug pellets cost real money and poisoned the hedgehogs that would have eaten the slugs anyway. Your grandmother's bin gave her the same protection for nothing and left the food chain intact. We threw the knowledge out with the rubbish. Number 20. The watering nobody talks about. First pattern break. Here's where things get a little awkward. For centuries, British gardeners used their own diluted urine as the fastest free nitrogen feed on Earth, and the Victorians built a whole trade around night soil, collected from the cities and carted out to the market gardens that fed London. 1 part urine to 10 parts water, poured onto the compost heap or around hungry sweet corn and brassicas, delivers nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in almost the perfect ratio, sterile and free, available every single morning. Allotment law is full of it, whispered rather than written. It became unspeakable in polite society the moment bagged fertilizer arrived and decided that everything natural was somehow shameful. But the soil doesn't care about etiquette. A hungry cabbage fed this way will swell to twice the size of its neighbor, and it never cost a penny. Number 19. Cardboard laid straight onto the grass. Why dig for 3 back-breaking weekends when a sheet of cardboard does it for you? Before the rotavator was invented to be sold to you, gardeners made new beds by laying flattened cardboard boxes over rough ground, soaking them through and piling compost, grass clippings, and old manure on top. By spring, the cardboard had smothered every weed beneath it and rotted into the soil, leaving a rich, crumbly bed full of worms with no digging at all. They called it lasagna gardening for the layers. The whole point of no dig is that turning the soil destroys the fungal networks plants rely on, and an undug bed grows heavier crops year on year. A trip to the supermarket bins gave you a season's worth of beds for free. The tool companies have never forgiven the cardboard box. Number 18. Nettle tea for green growth. The stinging nettles you curse in the corner of the plot are one of the most nitrogen-rich plants in Britain, and the old gardeners harnessed them. Cut young nettles before they flower, pack them into a bucket of water, and let them brew for a fortnight into a dark, evil-smelling liquid. Diluted 10:1, this is rocket fuel for leafy growth early in the season. Exactly what cabbages, leeks, and young tomato plants want before they start to fruit. It's the perfect partner to the comfrey tea at number 25. 1 for leaf, 1 for flower. A weed most people pay to have cleared became the cheapest spring feed there was. Nobody can package a free nettle, which is precisely why you've never seen it advertised. Number 17. A handful of wood ash from the fire. When the grate was cleaned out in spring, the cold wood ash didn't go in the bin. It went on the garden. Wood ash is rich in potassium and lime, and a scattering raked into the soil around gooseberries, currants and apple trees gave them the potash they needed to fruit heavily and resist disease. Around the brassica bed, it gently raised the pH, which clubroot can't tolerate. The trick was to use it dry and sparingly, because too much will scorch. A whole winter of fires gave your grandmother a free bag of the same potassium she'd otherwise buy in a sack. Coal ash was useless and went on the path, but wood ash was garden gold, and every cottager knew the difference. Central heating quietly ended a tradition that fed British gardens for 1,000 years. Number 16. Pinching out the tomato side shoots. Walk past any greenhouse in 1965 and you'd see a gardener running a thumb and forefinger down their tomato plants, snapping out the little shoots that sprout in the joint between the stem and each leaf. Left alone, those side shoots turn into a tangled jungle of leaf and tiny, late, never-ripening fruit. Pinched out weakly on a cordon variety, all the plant's energy pours into the main stem and the trusses you actually want, giving bigger, earlier, sweeter tomatoes. It takes 30 seconds and costs nothing but attention. Modern bush varieties are sold as no pinching needed, which sounds like a kindness until you realize it also means a smaller, messier crop. The old single-stem method, staked tall against the glass, fed a family from 6 plants. Discipline, it turns out, was the secret ingredient. Number 15. The banana skin under the rose. Don't bin the banana peel. Your grandfather buried his split lengthways in the soil beside his roses, his peppers, and his tomatoes, where it broke down within weeks into a slow-release dose of potassium and phosphorus right at the root zone. Some chopped the skins fine and dug them into the planting hole. Others dried them on the radiator, crumbled them, and sprinkled the powder like a feed. Either way, the fruit you'd already eaten paid for itself a second time over in flowers and tomatoes. It's the kind of zero-waste cleverness that defined the post-war kitchen garden, where nothing organic ever reached the dustbin. We pay for potash in a pretty box now and throw the banana skin away, having forgotten that the two were ever the same thing. Number 14. Burying the rotten wood. Second pattern break. Here's one that looks like madness until you understand it. When old gardeners cleared a fallen branch or a pile of logs, the wisest of them didn't burn it. They dug a trench, laid the wood in the bottom, and built a raised bed on top of it. As that buried timber slowly rots over the following years, it acts like a giant sponge, soaking up rain and releasing it back to the roots all summer long, while feeding a vast underground colony of fungi that hand nutrients straight to the plants. The Germans gave it a name, but Welsh and Scottish hill gardeners had been doing it for generations on poor, dry ground. A bed built this way needs barely any watering, even through a heat wave, and grows fatter every season as the wood breaks down. You're burying next year's water supply for free. Number 13. The plastic bottle drip feed. Long before anyone sold you an irrigation kit, gardeners took an empty 2-litre pop bottle, pierced a few tiny holes near the cap, buried it neck down beside a thirsty plant, and filled it from the can. The water seeped out slowly, hours after they'd left, soaking deep down to the roots where it mattered instead of evaporating off the surface. 1 bottle per tomato or courgette meant a single fill could keep a plant going for 2 days in the heat. During the hosepipe summers, when watering by can was the only thing allowed, this trick let people grow a full crop on a fraction of the water their neighbors wasted. It cost nothing but a bottle bound for the recycling. Quiet, efficient, and utterly invisible to anyone selling a soaker hose. Number 12. Cut and come again. Why buy a lettuce when one plant can give you a dozen meals? The old kitchen gardeners never pulled their salad leaves up by the root. They snipped the outer leaves of lettuce, rocket, spinach, and chard a few at a time, leaving the central growing point untouched, and the plant simply grew more. A single row sown in May could be harvested again and again right through the summer, a constant trickle of fresh leaves from the same few plants. Bagged supermarket salad, washed in chlorine and dead within days, is the exact opposite of this patient abundance. A 60p packet of seed, sown thinly and cropped this way, replaced a fortune in plastic bags of leaves that wilt before you finish them. The plant wanted to keep giving. We just had to stop killing it to learn that. Number 11. Sowing little and often. The great mistake the seed packets quietly encourage is sowing the whole row at once, so your entire crop of lettuce or beans or radish matures in the same week and half of it bolts or rots before you can eat it. The old hands sowed a short length every fortnight, a method called succession, so something fresh was always coming ready and nothing went to waste. Between the slow rows of parsnips and onions, they'd tuck quick catch crops of radish and salad that were up and eaten before the main crop needed the space. It turned a small plot into a production line that fed a family from spring to the first frost. One packet, sown wisely over months, fed you far longer than the same packet dumped in the ground in a single, hopeful afternoon. Number 10. Growing a crop to dig straight back in. This one sounds like a swindle and is actually genius. When a bed came empty in late summer, the old gardeners didn't leave the bare soil to be leached by autumn rain. They scattered cheap seed of mustard, clover, or field beans, let it grow into a green carpet, then dug the whole lot back into the ground before it flowered. This is green manure, and it pulls nitrogen out of the air, locks goodness into the soil, smothers weeds, and feeds the worms all winter, so next spring's bed is richer than the one before. A handful of seed bought a season's worth of free fertility. Bare soil is dead soil, and the wartime dig for victory gardeners knew that an empty bed was a wasted one. The fertilizer bag wants your beds hungry. The green manure keeps them fed for nothing. Number 9. Watering at first light. Third pattern break. This is the trick that got people in real trouble. Watering in the cool of dawn before the sun is up lets every drop sink deep to the roots instead of burning off in the midday heat, and it keeps the foliage dry overnight, so blight and mildew can't take hold. A plant watered at dawn drinks deep and grows away faster than one splashed at noon, when most of the water never reaches it at all. During the great hosepipe bans, dawn watering by can was the loophole that kept allotments alive while the suburbs browned, and more than one keen grower was reported by a twitching curtain for being out with a watering can at 5 in the morning. It's the single most powerful thing you can change, it costs nothing, and it grows a heavier crop on less water than your neighbor pours away after tea. Number 8. The splash of milk against mildew. When the courgettes and cucumbers went grey and dusty with powdery mildew, your grandmother didn't reach for a fungicide. She mixed 1 part milk to 9 parts water and sprayed it over the leaves in the morning sun. The proteins in the milk react with sunlight to create a natural antiseptic that mildew simply can't grow through, and the trace minerals give the plant a gentle boost besides. Repeated weekly, it held the disease at bay all summer for the price of the dregs in the bottle. Trials at agricultural colleges have since confirmed it works as well as the shop sprays on many crops. It was dismissed for years as a peasant remedy, which is exactly what it was, and exactly why it was free and harmless to the bees the chemical sprays were quietly killing. Number 7. Cloning the tomato from its own cuttings. Here's a secret the seed companies genuinely hope you never discover. Those side shoots you pinched out at number 16 are not rubbish. Drop a healthy one into a jar of water on the windowsill, and within 10 days it grows its own roots, an exact copy of the parent plant, ready to pot on and grow into a full cropping tomato. One plant bought in May can become 5 by July, all free, all identical, all fruiting before the summer ends. The old greenhouse men did this constantly to fill their staging without buying a single extra plant. The whole business model of selling you fresh seedlings every spring depends on you not knowing your tomato will happily clone itself from a scrap you were about to throw on the compost. It's the closest thing gardening has to printing money. Number 6. The jam jar greenhouse. Before anyone sold a fancy propagator, a cloche was an upturned jam jar, or a cut-down plastic bottle pressed into the soil over a single seedling. That little dome trapped warmth and moisture, fending off frost, slugs and wind, and let tender plants go out into the garden 2 or 3 weeks earlier than the calendar allowed. Rows of cut lemonade bottles march down the bean trench every spring, each one a tiny private greenhouse for the plant beneath it. Those stolen weeks at the start of the season are precisely what give you a crop before autumn instead of after it. A real greenhouse cost a fortune. A jar from the larder cost nothing and did the same job for one precious seedling at the moment it mattered most. The cleverest gardens have always run on rubbish. Number 5. Saving your own seed. 4th pattern break. Now we get to the one that's closest to genuinely against the rules. For thousands of years, growing food meant saving the best seed from your best plants each autumn to sow again the next spring, slowly breeding varieties perfectly suited to your own soil and climate. For free, forever. Then, the law changed. Under modern seed regulations, it became illegal to sell many traditional varieties that aren't on an official expensive register, and quietly, the old open-pollinated types vanished from the shops in favor of hybrids that don't breed true, forcing you to buy fresh every single year. But saving seed for yourself, peas, beans, tomatoes, lettuce, is still entirely yours to do. Let a few of your best plants run to seed, dry it, store it in an envelope, and you'll never buy that crop again. Whole communities now swap seed in church halls precisely to keep the old varieties alive. It is the most quietly rebellious thing a gardener can do. Number 4. Stopping the bolt. Half a summer crop is lost not to pests, but to bolting, when lettuce, spinach and rocket suddenly shoot up a flower spike in the heat and turn bitter overnight. The old gardeners beat it by sowing those leafy crops in the cool shade of taller plants, behind the runner beans or beneath the sweet corn, and by keeping the soil constantly damp so the plant never panicked into seeding. They chose the right variety for the right month. Leafy types for high summer, hearting types for the cooler ends of the season. Knowing which crop wanted shade and which wanted sun was the difference between a salad bowl full from May to October and a row that ran to seed by July. It's pure timing and placement, costs nothing, and it's the knowledge that quietly disappeared when we started buying our salad in bags. Number 3. The second sowing nobody bothers with. Most people put their gardens to bed in September, and that's exactly the mistake. The old kitchen gardeners knew that midsummer was the time to sow the crops that would carry them through autumn and winter. Hardy greens, winter lettuce, spring cabbage, broad beans, garlic and onions, all going in while the soil was still warm, so they were strong enough to stand the cold. A bed cleared of early potatoes in July was never left bare. It was straight away sown again for a second harvest. This single habit is what turns food before autumn into food all year round, the difference between a gardener who eats for 3 months and one who eats for 12. The garden never truly stops. We were simply taught to stop tending it the moment the summer rush was over. Number 2. Planting 3 crops in 1 square. Allotment committees have grumbled about this one for years because it looks untidy and it breaks the neat rows rule, but it grows more food per square foot than anything else. The old method, borrowed and adapted from across the world, was to grow tall, climbing, and ground-covering crops together in the same patch. Sweet corn standing tall, climbing beans winding up the corn stalks as a free support, and squash or pumpkins sprawling across the ground below to shade out weeds and hold in moisture. Each plant helps the others. The beans feed nitrogen to the corn holds up the beans, the squash mulches them both, and one bed yields 3 crops at once. It triples the harvest from the same ground without a scrap of extra feed or water. Tidy rows were a fashion. This was a feast. Number 1. The Victorian hotbed. And the greatest forgotten trick of them all, the one that genuinely fed British households fresh food through the dead of winter long before anyone dreamed of a heated greenhouse. The Victorians dug a pit, filled it with a deep mound of fresh stable manure and straw, and let it begin to rot. As it broke down, it gave off a steady, gentle heat, enough to keep a bed warm for weeks. And on top of it, they laid a few inches of soil and an old window frame as a lid. Inside that warm, glassed box, while frost gripped the rest of the garden, they grew salads, carrots, and early potatoes in January, melons and cucumbers come spring. It cost nothing but muck and labor, and it ran on heat the manure produced for free as it decomposed. The grand kitchen gardens of every great house ran on hotbeds, feeding the family with fresh produce 12 months a year. Cheap heating and out-of-season air freight made us forget it entirely. But a hotbed and a pane of glass is still the truest secret to a year's worth of food, growing while everyone else's garden sleeps. So there's your challenge. Pick just one this week. Bury a banana skin, brew a bucket of comfrey, pinch out a side shoot and root it in a jar, or sow a second crop in that empty bed. Then come back and tell me which one worked, because I've tried every trick on this list, and my plot has never been fuller. Your grandparents knew how to feed a family from a patch of soil and a bag of muck. Now you know too. Tell me in the comments which one you're starting with.